Clerk, call the roll.
Chairman Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Stewart.
Here.
School Committee Member Dodd.
Here.
School Committee Member Hoey.
Here.
School Committee Member Adams.
Here.
6 present.
Thank you. Tonight, we're meeting the subcommittee, joint subcommittee meeting with the school committee, city council on municipal buildings. We have an agenda. The agenda is municipal school building, repairs, work orders, in conjunction with the Collins report study, and update on fire stations. First, I'd like to let the chair of the school committee have the floor and just have opening remarks before we really get into this.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to, just for context, and I know everybody is aware, we have hundreds of work orders, outstanding issues in our school buildings. What we did was we had a motion asking each principal to name their priority top 10 facility concerns to try to get a handle on, you know, the hundreds and hundreds of work orders so we could start to look at prioritizing and really making some headway as there is a number of issues that need to be addressed. So that is the report that you have in front of you, the top 10 most pressing facility needs. And it is broken down by schools so that you get a sense of, you know, what some of the issues are. It can be something like doors that don't lock, broken windows, plumbing that doesn't work, toilets that don't work, HVAC issues, roof issues. It really covers the gamut. But these were the areas that our principals identified as being a primary concern. And the second item on our agenda tonight that I just wanted to talk about in context was regarding the number of schools that failed the fire safety audit. And some of that's, you know, sprinklers that aren't functioning, again, with the doors and windows. So we're really hoping that by working together, we could, you know, first try to tackle what are the most pressing priority concerns for our students and our staff, and secondly, develop a plan going forward to, you know, address the most pressing ones, but also have a system in place. I would like to have regular meetings between our two bodies if we could, whether it's quarterly, however makes sense, but to really have a plan and a strategy for how we can first of all, get our facilities up to speed and safe for our students and our faculty, but secondly, to have, you know, ongoing maintenance be a priority issue. And I know it's always been an area of concern, and funding is always an area of concern, but that is the intention by today's meeting. I don't know if anybody else would like to jump in. Thank you.
And also, before we get started, Superintendent of Schools, Janine Durkin, is here, along with the manager. Superintendent, would you have anything to add before we jump into this?
So I think that Committeewoman Doherty really articulated it clearly relative to the needs of our schools. I think that some of the discussions we had at subcommittee meeting was, could we potentially come to some agreements around what perhaps could be things that could be done at the school level by our own custodians? What might there be certain things that if you look across the board, there are a number of schools that have heating and air conditioning needs, and are there things that we can look collectively at and determine if there are contracts that we could have to address all of these in one clean swoop. So we're definitely open to strategizing and working together, because I think that's the key piece, so that we won't have meetings with our union reps around what are we going to do when that's an agenda item for tomorrow, what are we going to do when the heat doesn't work in schools. So I'd like to talk about what are we going to do to ensure that the heat works in schools for all of our schools. And I welcome the opportunity to continue that discussion.
Thank you. So I attended a school committee meeting a few weeks ago when they had this Collins Center study. I have talk to other counselors and the manager in the meantime. And this is obviously something that's just been going on and on and on, and we all have to get together and try to solve this. And we have a lot of new players now, a lot of new people in new positions. So really the purpose of this meeting is to strategize. We are gonna meet again, but to strategize on how we're gonna get these things done, you know? We can't keep pointing the finger. We can't keep saying we don't have enough money, because some issues, some things have to deal with money, a lot of things have to deal with time management. And this is the stuff we have to focus on now. Later in the meeting, we will get to some of the fire issues that came up, but I also did want to talk about some of the municipal buildings. But after getting that report, I did tour some of the buildings myself, and, you know, it's the same old thing again. It's the roofs, it's the heating and the air conditioning, it's the broken windows, it's the ceiling tiles that aren't in place, it's little things that need to be painted and just cleaned up, and some of the cement work around the schools really is atrocious. So with that said, I don't know, I'll open the mic up to a couple of my counselors first, and we'll move on with talking to some of the department heads on trying to figure out a way that we're gonna organize and do a better job. Did you have something to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. I think that there's probably three issues that we have to look at. I think that given the recent Collins report, that what we really need to do is develop a schedule of priorities of what needs to be done and when it will be done, so that people have a likelihood of when those things will be fixed. I think that the City Council has to make a commitment to have money in the capital budget every year for school improvements and for building improvements until that's done. I think also too, and I think this is important and goes to the heart of the whole problem, is that we have to recognize that the current system that we use for doing school repairs just doesn't work. It's ineffective, and we just keep on following behind, and it never gets done. So that the idea that people from the city or workers from the city go up to Middlesex Street to punch in or whatever, then end up going to the school, then go back for lunch, then come back, means that we're not getting 8 hours of work out of those workers. We're getting a much smaller amount. And that has to be changed, I think. It needs to be, it can be done way more efficiently. I can't even imagine why we've put up with it for as long as we have, but we're not getting things done. We just continue to fall behind. When I first came onto the school committee, there was a joint subcommittee like this, and we went out and there were 1,200 work orders at that time. And so we went out and we looked at the schools and toured like the 3 or 4 worst schools, and then came back and we were able to whittle down that list to maybe 800 or 900, but I would suspect that it's probably back up at 1,200 now. So where did we get in those 6 or 7 years? We didn't get very far at all. And so I think that the system that we use to do repairs now needs to be changed dramatically. I think that's something that the city manager needs to address and come up with a reorganization and work with the school department to make sure that's done in a more efficient way than the way it's done now. And then finally, I think that we need to use the MSBA and depend on them. And for those of us who have gone to MSBA meetings for the high school, we've got the high school project, but you can see on the agenda that there are many school districts throughout the Commonwealth that go before the MSBA on almost a regular basis to get their larger projects done. And that's something that we have not taken advantage of up to this point, but we should start taking advantage of it going forward. And so I think that if we take all 3 of those things and organize them in a comprehensive way, that's a three-prong approach that I think should provide meaningful results regarding the problems that we have in all of the schools across the school district. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Sorrell?
Yes, hi, thank you. I agree with Councilor Kennedy, and I also feel that once we do get these items taken care of and in a schedule, we need to continue with our schedule of maintenance. That's very important. Once we have these checked off the list, they're not really checked off the list because they are still going to need maintenance throughout the years. And I feel that that's so very important, and that's where we missed too, that we need to get back, and we need to get back into a schedule of maintenance for these items. And that's what I wanted to add to this, so thank you.
Thank you. As I said, I did go by some of the schools, yep, just, so, for example, maybe the Lincoln School, you know, we just had a lot of tiles missing, which isn't a big deal, but we just need to find the time to change them. If they're getting damaged because of drains, well, then the roof drains have to be fixed. The one thing that really stuck out over there is the cement issues on the sidewalks. So, you know, do we or don't we have someone that does cement work? Do they have a regular schedule? Are they being pulled off on other jobs? You know, it seems like we need a dedicated person from whenever you can do cement, March to December. But these are the things that we have to take a look at, our staffing levels, the staffing, what they're dedicated to and do, and things like that. So that would be helpful. Mr. Hoey?
Thank you. I think it's important for me to say a few things tonight. About a year ago, we sat here. It was Steve Gendron, Bob Gignac, and myself, and then Rita Mercier, yourself, and Bill Samaras. And the one that took the punch in the face was Kevin Murphy. Finally, that's where we opened the can of worms that night. We kind of trashed Kevin Murphy and Lands and Buildings people. And with that said, the Collins report come out, and I really haven't seen anything that good in a long time. That's a great report. And I think short and sweet, all we have to do here for now, because I know the manager needs money. I know you do. I think all we have to do on the school side from now on is let our leader, Rick Underwood, when it comes to maintenance and helping you guys out, get with the DPW guy. I think his name's Donaldson. I'm sorry if I say your name wrong. But I think they can get done a lot of things real cheap, and we can start fixing things like custodians can fix ceiling, patch up, paint. I believe the person at the mic right now for us should be Rick Underwood. Any questions anybody has here tonight? We get this guy as a bargain, a big bargain. People get paid a lot more around other cities, and this kid's not going anywhere, and I can't believe it after the year and a half he's been through. But Madam Manager, Rick Underwood is our man from the school side. I know I'm only one person. I don't know if everybody feels the same way as I do. But if you want to get things done and get them done pretty quick without money, I think Underwood's the guy with this DPW guy. I think that's where they have to hook up. And I'd like to hear them tonight if we can get them to speak, John. So that's all I want to say tonight. I'm going to drink water for the rest of the night. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll go right down the line. So, Mr. Nutter?
Thank you, Councilor. I do know that the city and the school department together have been working on trying to get some grant funds for safety, which will address the locks and some cameras and some other security. And it is my understanding that we just were awarded a federal grant. So if we could ask either the manager or superintendent or both to comment on that and where we can use the money to address the door issue and the safety issues are to me, are the number one priority. We need to make sure that our buildings are safe and secure for our students and staff. And if I can, I would turn it over to them.
Sure.
Thank you. Actually, a few months ago, the school department and the city, through the police department, joined together on an application to the Department of Justice for school safety issues, and was just notified of an award of $400 and some odd thousand. I know the superintendent contacted us about cooperating, and the police department did. The submission actually had to come from the police department, but I'll turn it over to the superintendent to address.
You stole my thunder, Mr. Nutter. So in the midst of, some of the struggles that we are faced with, we are able to, with this $400,000 grant over 2 years, to hire someone for specifically to work with Mr. Underwood on safety issues that are in our schools. This, we actually did work with Mr. Underwood as well as our city, the city people to determine what we needed. The good news was we had a very extensive safety audit that was conducted in 2016. So we had that data. We knew what we needed to address in it. So the grant will support schools in the realm of doors and locks and also surveillance cameras and things that we couldn't do on our own. So we're very excited that we just got notification today, and so we'll get to work on the hiring and start to work with our school and the city to get some of these plans in place.
Okay, thank you. Madam Manager?
Just briefly, I just wanted to just comment quickly, and I know you want to hear from those who are on the front line when it comes to school and school repairs. The Collins report has been mentioned, which did give us a view of where we stand in both schools and municipal buildings. One thing it noted, and I will mention this not by way of excuse but explanation, the significant drop in workforce in lands and buildings as well as outside contracts. So the lack of preventative maintenance has caused a huge increase in those lists of work orders, and yet personnel has shrunk during the same time. So we have our challenges trying to address that. Just following up with Councillor Kennedy's mention, there are a number of projects, as the councillor has mentioned, that the city may indeed be eligible for through this MSBA process, namely 3 different programs, one for roofs, one for HVAC, and one for windows. And we are looking at all of those when it comes to the list of needs across the city, and we'll work together with the school department to prepare applications, more than one. We did see many communities, some communities that had multiple approvals in one sitting of the MSBA. So, we have not applied for this grant funding for a number of years, and so we are overdue to get those applications done in a timely fashion. I think they're due around January or February, and we will be working closely with the school department, one, to identify those projects that are eligible, what are the priorities, and get those applications expedited so that we can address, hopefully, some much needed funds to address those bigger projects. And then secondly, we did receive the school department's response to, I believe it was Ms. Doherty's motion, and that listed the top 10 items of every school. I know Mr. Donison and Mr. Green have those lists and are working closely with the school department to try and address them. We need to come up with an efficient way of addressing these that is not only efficient but effective for all concerned.
Thank you. And I want to assure people, I mean, out of the 8 or 9 schools that I went to, they're not atrocious, but there's little things that just are annoying. There's the ceiling tiles that never get replaced, and most of the schools that I went to, a couple of doors were sticking. I mean, they do have cameras and intercom systems and doors that work. They may not be perfect. A couple of doors, you got to make sure they shut, but the doors do shut and lock, the schools that I went to. Were the cameras giving you the best pictures? No, but we do have cameras on the front doors. People have to get buzzed in. So from here, maybe we could go to Mr. Underwood if you wanted to come up. Like I said, we're not here to stop pointing fingers, but if we want to make sure that you're part of the solution here, and we want everybody to be working together from this point on. Hopefully from this meeting, whatever you and Mr. Donaldson feel is appropriate, you should be having a weekly or meet twice a month or something. Some sort of meetings where you're in his office, he's in your office, and you guys go over you know, what are we doing, where are we, who do we need to work on things?
So absolutely. So that's one of the things we've been doing. Jim Donis and myself, Jim Green, have met the last couple of days. We met today, and again with the chief also involved. We'll be meeting every Tuesday at 11 o'clock at DBW's office, and just collectively putting our heads together, looking at different ways we can address these issues in the rest of the issues. One of the big problems is that we do is we have this list of things we're going to do. So we're going to work in the Riverside School, we're going to work at the so-and-so. And it's no surprise to anybody here, it's manpower. You get halfway through a job or something comes up and you're off to fix something at a leak here, or you're off to a different school so it's really not only time scheduling, we can do better in working with the time that we have to work with, but it's also identified in the Collins report where we're underfunded on the manpower. And no matter how hard we work and what we do, we're always going to need more people. So that's really one of the big problems. You start a project, you put a schedule together, you put something together that you think is going to make sense, and there's a roof leak at the freshman academy, there's a roof leak somewhere else, or there's a heating issue. So, you know, that's one of the problems. Councilor Kennedy also hit where we can work better with our time. And we can work better with the custodians. We can do a little bit more. So just all those different things, we are looking at everything we can think of in the box, out of the box, to try to come together and try to address all of these problems that we're having. And they're large. We're actually have, I think right now, 1,300 outstanding work orders. But they increase all the time because, again, we have an older workforce at DPW. We have people that are out on work injury. We have, every year that goes by, our buildings get a little bit older. So we have to just continue to work together and try to come up with new ideas. So I agree with everything you all said.
All right, thank you. Sure, Mr. Hoey?
I know I put you on the spot, Rick, but I want to put him on the spot just a little bit here. I remember learning something from you when you were taught, and I know it's hard because we're from the schools, and lands and buildings, they're from the city, but I remember you talking to me about getting our timing better. You know, like some people show up at 7 o'clock. Well, I can't explain it as good as you explained it to me, but management of the time of the people doing it could be off a little bit too. That's all.
Well, one of the things I do all the time is I look at, how we look at this if it was a private industry. If this is a private industry, you could not stay in business if everybody was showing up at the same time and everyone's waiting for the foreman to give you work orders out, give you who's running whose truck, who's leaving where. So again, that's something that Jim Donison, Jim Green, myself have been talking about, trying to find ways of getting the trucks out early, getting to the jobs, getting to the schools, firehouses, et cetera, with the parts that are needed, with the manpower that's needed, and then being able to stay there effectively in doing, what we need to do. But if everybody's coming in at 7 o'clock and break is at 9 o'clock, there's a breakdown there. So same thing at the end of the day. If you have to be back at work by 2 o'clock to unload your truck, and you're taking your breaks and you're taking your lunch and you're so-and-so, it's very ineffective. So I've always been a strong believer that the school department really needs its own crew, one way or the other, whether it's dispatched a part of 1701 and dispatched to the school department, so they work directly for us and are leaving our buildings, our offices at 7 o'clock. I know that probably isn't going to work with the staffing we have now, but it's something we can look at in the future. It worked very well when we had our own plumbers in the schools. I think if we look back, a couple of years back when we had those 2 plumbers that were reporting to us every day, the number of plumbing issues in the schools were greatly diminished. So some of those things that just actually make sense. I mean, now we have to figure out how we can do it. One of the other things that, while I have everybody's there, is one of our concerns now is we are still looking at trying to get heated all the buildings for the 15th of October. We still have, I think, 3 or 4 schools that still have boilers that need to be worked on or put together. We do have a working boiler in every school presently, but I know last year there was problems with trying to get all the secondary boilers together. We did a great job on that last year, but at this point we still have a couple that we need to look at. So I just want everyone to focus on that also, and remember, the 15th is only a few days away. So.
Okay, thank you. All right. Did you?
Yeah, Mr. Underwood, before you sit down, I realize you just sat down, but, I was a little slow. The 4 heating systems that aren't working, how are we taking care of those? Who's doing that? Are we doing that in-house? Do we have outside people, HVAC people doing that, or how are we addressing those 4?
That may be a question for Jim Green. I know there was talk of having outside contractors do it earlier in the year and do all the startups for the boilers. I'm not sure if that's still in the works. Again, Jimmy, could you answer that for me? Are we still doing outside con?
There's 4 boilers that have to be finished put together. We have a contractor to take care of that. And at the Washington School, we have a contractor come in and replace the tubes on one of the boilers there.
Okay.
And we'll be all set.
So the answer is that we have outside contractors taking care of all 4 of those heating systems to make sure that they're good within 6 days, 7 days?
It'll be by the end of next week.
And it's outside contractors doing that for all 4? Okay, so is there one contractor that's doing them one at a time, or do we have 4 contractors, or?
No, it's one contractor. They'll use different men doing each boiler. It won't be one guy just going to every boiler. It'll be a contractor sending out 2 groups of men doing it.
Okay, so today, for instance,
No, what we have is one contractor, but he'll be sending out different groups to handle each boiler. That's why we waited so long to do it. He's got 2 groups that'll handle, like, the Robinson School, the Rogers School, I think it's the Sullivan School, and the Washington School. The Washington School is done by a separate contractor. They're replacing tubes, and they've got a long list of people waiting for them, and we're scheduled for next week doing that one.
okay, so today, were there crews at each of those schools today?
No, there wasn't today, no.
Okay.
They won't start until the beginning of next week, and by the end of the week, we should be all set. But there are heat in every one of those schools right now.
Okay.
The only schools that we don't have the heat running is the Moody School, because we're replacing the ceiling there, but the boiler does run. And the Lowell High School, the 22 building, because we're replacing pumps. It has nothing to do with the boilers, though, they are running. And those will be running by the end of the week, and that's done by Land and Buildings.
The end of next week?
That'll be done by the end of this week. We're just replacing pumps in the 22 building.
Okay,
But those boilers are running, both boilers are.
okay. Why is it that they're not working on them until next week? Why wasn't anybody working on them?
There's just, all that is just a scheduling issue. Everybody's doing boiler work at the same time.
Is it a scheduling issue with the contractor?
Yes.
Okay,
And we've been doing work on them throughout the summer. We've been fitting in doing the boilers ourselves. So we have made sure that every school has at least one boiler. They've been actually running boilers through the last couple of weeks when we've had cold mornings. They've been starting them up.
when you say by yourselves, you mean that some of it's
Lands
been
and
done
buildings.
in-house?
Yes.
Okay,
And we actually, a lot of times, wait for the insurance companies to go through, and every boiler is checked out by the insurance company. If they find something wrong, they'll let us know what they've found wrong. It could be a little thing from a safety leaking or not working or something like that, and they'll give us a report on that.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Could you just, what was up with the Moody School again?
The Moody School, we're replacing a ceiling in the boiler room,
Okay,
and that was an ongoing issue that we've had to it. A section fell down and another section fell down.
okay, but the heat will be on,
Actually, the heat would run now, but we're just keeping it off until we're done with the ceiling.
okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sure, Rick?
Add one more thing, School Committee Doherty, the 10 schools that have deficiencies and violations on the sprinklers, none of them are without a sprinkler. They're deficiencies as far as some have a small leak, some have a percussion plate, stuff like that, but we don't have any schools that don't have a working sprinkler system right now. Just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move? Okay. Could we hear from Mr. Donaldson?
Sure. So, Mr. Underwood mentioned 1,300 work orders. I just wanted to sort of everybody to realize that's very overwhelming for our staff. I was talking to Mr. Green today. We have 4 HVAC people. We have 2 concrete masonry individuals. We have 6 carpenters, of which 2 of them are out on extended leave. We have 2 roofers, 5 plumbers, and 1 painter. So the 1,300 work orders is very overwhelming for this staff load. So we were having a discussion today, and we're saying, you know what, we can't do 1,300 work orders and have them done tomorrow. So maybe part of the solution is to take a look at some of the work and say, okay, we're going to have to hire some contractors. And just as Mr. Green was mentioning, how the contractors are working on heating system, put together some work with with Connor Baldwin and come up with some contractors who we can have as go-to people who can take care of some of these things. And just as a point, and I was telling Jim Green today, sometimes we're going to have to say, no, we can't do it because it's 1,300 work orders is way too many. For example, the 10 priority schools that we have, some of those are really projects. And I think what we need to do is realize that DPW, lands and buildings, we do maintenance. We shouldn't really be in the project business. If it's something as large, and the question is what is too large of something to be a project where you have a contractor versus a smaller item, which is a maintenance item. So what we really need to do is, and Mr. Underwood mentioned earlier, is we're going to, he said Tuesday, we're going to start on Thursdays at 11 o'clock just to get together and look at those work orders and say, okay, which of these work orders are projects and which are them can we do as lands and buildings, and try and work on whittling away at these 1,300 or group them together so that a contractor can do some of them. And just as an aside, the 1,300 work orders, those are work orders that are not closed yet. Some of them are completed, and that's something we need to work with the schools and the program called School Dude. School Dude is a program where a custodian or somebody from the school will open up a program and say, I'm requesting this to be done, whether it be ceilings or heating system or whatever. That gets to DPW, we open up the program, and it's a work order gets started. We'll complete it, we'll check it off, but it isn't closed until somebody from school actually goes into the program and closes it, even though it's completed. So those 1,300 may not be all things that haven't been done yet. Maybe half of them are done, but they just haven't been closed out. So those are something that we need to work with Mr. Underwood on figuring out which of those 1,300 haven't been closed yet. So maybe, for example, like last week we got a memorandum from somebody saying that a number of doors weren't closing at one of the schools. I believe it was the Riley School, and there was very big concern about that. We don't have the staff person who's really has that strength to go in there and work on door locks. So we really should hire a contractor, somebody who's specialized in door locks, and spend the capital money to go in there and take care of these special projects and allow us to work on the maintenance part of it, change the filters, replace some of the, you had mentioned the concrete. And I also wanted to point out that lands and buildings also takes care of all the city buildings, City Hall, Civic Center, all of the fire stations, the park buildings, the alumni stadium. There's some trailers out there that the coaches work in. All the fire stations, we're going to talk about that later, but 8 fire stations that are in different stages of repair that needs to be done. The DPW building. So we in addition to the schools, the 32 schools, we're also taking care of all of the city. Also sidewalks. The lands and buildings take care of sidewalks too. So that's another responsibility that they do. So the masonry people have to take care of the sidewalks, they have to take care of this and that, as well as deteriorated concrete at the school. So we just really need to get a handle on what's out there, how we're going to approach it, hire some contractors to help us out, and obviously there's going to be some funding issues that we really need to help out with these if we're going to go with the contractor route. So.
Okay, and what we could use too is some suggestions, what do we do with the parks guys in the winter? When do they kind of really slow down? I know they're out there plowing, but what do we do, with that, with those guys from whatever, December to April?
Correct, I believe.
Should we be hiring part-time people? Should we be looking to hire versus sub out? So we need your expertise in this to give us some suggestion. What's the most efficient way to, what you think with the rates out there versus hiring people versus, and for years I thought maybe the school department should have two, whatever you want to call them, handymen, and they just stick with small school repairs, maybe that's something we should be looking at too. They fall under the school department, and they set it up however they want to, but, two people working after hours, school hours, so they can get the most done. I mean, that's something we need to look at too. So we need all suggestions on the table to tackle this. Councilor Sorrell?
Hi, yes. I was wondering, have we considered co-ops? For example, I know that where I work, we hire co-ops for, a small wage, and they help us with our design and all of that. And I see we have HVAC, concrete, masonry, and these co-ops who are learning these trades in school probably would love to have some 6-month job to be able to get the experience in their field. And I think hiring co-ops is a very interesting thing. And also we have the tech that we very well could hire some of the students at the tech as co-ops to help with the small maintenance issues that they are learning about in the trades that they are learning about.
Yep, thank you. Sure, Mr. Nutter?
Thank you. When you were looking, or as you are looking at the list, and you are working with Mr. Underwood to define what may be projects as opposed to what may be maintenance, that would be a good idea to work with the city and the school department, so that as you talked about the different programs through the MSBA, we could identify the projects. As you said, there's several masonry, there's several windows. I know there's several heating and roofing issues, and those are all things under the MSBA programs that if we take those 1,200 and we group and we say, okay, these are the immediate ones we need addressed that would qualify for that, so that we can start that list and get that submitted by January.
Thank you. Yep, Mr. Hoey?
Just one quick question. I appreciate you coming here tonight, by the way, but 1,300 work orders, I'm just guessing. I would say you have a large majority of them would be something to do with either plumbing or heating. Would you need, my question to you is, if we had, like in the high school, for instance, for the whole system, 2 master plumbers and 2 master electricians working for our school systems, going around fixing things, maybe plumbers, maybe not electrical, but maybe with the plumbers, we could teach some of our kids at the high school how to be plumbers too. 2 birds with 1 stone. But I tried to do this idea before in the high school, get 3 electricians and have them teach kids electrical work. I don't think it's a safe thing probably for kids, but plumbing, there's no doubt that we could teach kids how to plumb. If you had a couple, and plumbers, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of master plumbers know all about boilers.
Yeah, I can't speak to what the requirements are to work under a master plumber, but that's a good idea. Absolutely.
Yeah, there are plumbing schools, electrical schools. Doesn't always have to be just the vocational schools, but it can be any one of these plumbing and electrical schools that are in the area that may be interested in co-ops. So we could look into that too.
Yeah, and some of the work orders they're large.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it would be like, here's a work order, fix the school. Well, that's just too big of a work order. It's got to be more specific sometimes. Right. And I know Ricky Underwood we need to kind of address some of that, but obviously 1,300, right. Maybe there's a few of those.
Right, and really again, big. The schools that I went through, just appearances, we're leaving tiles out because there's a leak 3 times a year, so we don't put tiles back. There's a hole in the wall because there's not a door stop, so we don't fix the hole in the wall. There's little things that need to be painted. There's little, some of the doors, I understand the locks have to work, but there's some, fudging around that the carpenters could do to get the doors to swing a little better. So a lot of those little things are what we're talking about with time management, We just have to figure out a way, until we can handle the manpower issue, we've got to do a better with our time management to get some of these things done. And I've said it numerous times to the manager, I don't know why in the city this large, we don't have second shift, electrical, plumbing, and carpentry. You can't do all the work on any of these buildings when they're fully occupied. So that's got to be a strong discussion on that and figure that out.
Well, that's true. We do have, I believe, 6 electricians on staff. Maybe it's 7. But we have 2 vacancies, and it's really hard to attract electricians right now because they can make so much more money working in the private sector than working for the city. And they do work overtime because the times they have to do the fire alarm testing has to be outside of school hours.
Yeah.
So they'll work the overtime hours. Obviously, if we had the 2 extra bodies to fill in the vacancies, maybe they could do the second shift like you mentioned.
Okay. Does anybody have any follow-up questions? Yes. Yep. Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that I can appreciate all of the work that DPW does in the broad scope that they have, but that's really just provides testimony for the notion that we need to reorganize the way we're doing things. We've got a list of 1,300 work orders. What happens, I would imagine, I'm quite sure, is that stuff near the top of that list, some of it gets done. The stuff at the bottom, number 1,150, never gets done because it never rises up to the level where it becomes a priority. And I suspect from what you just said that there's probably projects at the top of the list that are high priority that aren't getting done either just because it's such a large project or work order that it just can't get, we need an outside contractor or something to do it. So maybe what makes sense is, I first of all think that we need to reorganize the way that we do this and who we have attacking this. And maybe it's going to mean that we need to hire more people. But if we're not going to do that, we're just going to be talking about this for years and years and years. It's just going to be the same old routine. And I would think that there's probably on the list of 1,300, there are probably a couple of hundred projects that are what Council Lady calls handyman projects that I could do. Maybe there's not a couple of hundred, maybe there's just a few that I could do. But I do think that the idea that Council Cirillo brought up, looking at whether we could hire co-ops or depend on the vocational school, particularly in the summertime, to do some of those projects, makes a lot of sense. And you can kind of tie it into the education of those students if they were doing that during the summer, and they could probably get a lot done. Especially a lot of those smaller type projects. So that's something that I think that's worth looking into. I also think it should be pointed out that this isn't a problem that's unique to Lowell. If you see the media or you just look at the list of the MSBA projects, schools across the Commonwealth have been neglected and are in need of repair. So I think it's good, and I think people should have some appreciation for the fact that at least we're trying to address it. And it is not something that it's not like every other community in the Commonwealth has pristine schools and we don't. It's quite different from that. So I think that that's worth pointing out. And if we're getting near 6:30, I would just like to make a motion that we request that the city manager work with the school department, the superintendent, and the DPW and come up with a plan for reorganization of how we address the maintenance issues and deferred maintenance in the school department, in the schools.
Seconded. Can I?
Sure, and then the manager. Yeah.
I also am wondering if students actually need that field experience to graduate. I know that some students do have that criteria there that they do need some field experience, and to have them come into Lowell, into our buildings to help out, as co-ops, which they're very inexpensive, and they want to learn and they want to do a good job, because that will be their field when they come out of school. Thank you.
Madam Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to add, there are very good suggestions tonight, and I think the information that the school department and DPW will be meeting weekly to monitor this in the short term is helpful. I can attest to the fact that I know the DPW and Lands and Buildings has been in the schools all summer working, tackling projects, both big and small, but the list is overwhelming, as has been stated here. So in addition to some of those things we've talked about, and we'll continue to work together to try and address this really important issue, I did want to let the council know and the school committee in the school department that following the Collins report, the city did engage an expert, EMG, who's been going through all the schools and has finished doing that, as well as the city municipal buildings, to look at some of those items that were raised in the Collins report, and then prioritize and put a figure to them as well, so that going forward we have an idea in terms of what priorities are and how we should be addressing them and what they will cost. So we'll continue to work with that. I think they will finish their field work this month and would expect a report there. So there's many moving pieces on this, but we are looking at it and very, very concerned, as everybody is, about the condition of the schools and the municipal buildings.
Okay, thank you. And we will try to meet in about 3 or 4 months and go. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I think that the communication is going to be essential here. That just in us talking tonight and knowing that DPW is working with Mr. Underwood and the school administration to identify, what are those areas that will be eligible for our MSBA funds? What are those areas that we could use? This new grant is huge for us, because many of the issues have to do with exterior doors being able to be locked and safety issues that are utmost for all of us, I know. And so I just wanted to offer my appreciation that there does feel like a glimmer of hope here, that we are going to put our minds together and communicate and continue to look at strategies and solutions. And I just want to thank you all for your time and effort.
Thank you. If we could quickly, we only have a few more minutes, if I could ask Mr. Donaldson one more time to come up. There's some issues that I want to hit on with the fire stations and things around. So you won't have time to answer everything, but I did want to get an update on how the installation of the washer extractors are going. We're getting those in. We did have a couple of big issues with roofing, and was wondering how Old Ferry Road was going. I had heard through the grapevine, but I don't know, it's all secondhand, that we weren't able to replace that roof. We just patched it, but could we get a report on why, we're not replacing that whole roof? I just don't understand why that one
Old
just
Ferry
can't
Road?
be yeah.
So the Old Ferry Road estimate to do the entire roof was $400,000.
All right. How does that come in at $20,000 a square? That just seems crazy.
Well, the problem is we had a actual structural engineer take a look at it, and when they built it, what year was 70s, mid-70s?
1976.
In the mid-70s, when they built it, I don't think they built it properly as far as putting in the shingles over top of the insulation, and so it's going to be more involved than just putting brand new shingles on it. Okay,
So is there sheathing under there? There's plywood sheathing under.
I should know.
I believe there's plywood and then a layer of insulation and then shingles.
And then so the insulation is above the plywood, and the shingles are on top of the insulation. And so really to do it, that insulation and the shingles actually have to come off of it and be redone.
No, I understand that. It just seems kind of crazy. I mean,
It is.
I
It
guess
is.
that's about 20 square there, and that's $20,000 a square. That
It's-
just seems
it's,
outrageous.
So this summer, I know we had roofers from Lands and Buildings go and take care of the areas that were really leaking badly. And so those should have been addressed. And I haven't heard any issues in the last month with the roofs. So I could be wrong, but
It is a lot better than it was. There were a lot of repairs done over the summer.
Yeah.
There was one day a couple of weeks ago where we had a very heavy rain, and there was still one area that was leaking a little bit, so we'll have to address that. But overall, it is a lot better than it was.
All right, and then, so we had the extractors, of those going well?
Yes, we have 8 fire stations. We're buying 8 extractors. 7 of them have been installed. The lands and buildings guys have been working hard all summer with the plumbing and the electric. 5 of them are up and running. The lands and buildings plumbers were working on the Lawrence Street extractor today, and we hope to get those 2 up and running within about a week or so, and then get the last one, and that'll be the end of it.
Okay, and then quickly, we talked with the manager. I did want to come up with a plan to move Mammoth Road, so we've got to get that fire prevention out of Mammoth Road and try to come up with some sort of a solution where we can, move office space around. So
Jim and
I'll
I-
leave that up to you.
Jim and I toured the building a couple of months back, and we determined that there were just too many issues to repair, so.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I agree. I would like to see that office out as quickly as possible, so we need to come up with a plan.
Yeah,
so-
we've had discussions, and we've talked about, is there a place in the city where we can lease? Because it's a shame to actually pour money into that old
Right,
building
right.
unless you gut it completely and spend,
Yeah,
$1
no.
million, $2 million on it.
Okay, all right. So we'll recess.
Can we get a vote on the motion?
Yeah, we'll get a vote on the motion, but we will reconvene in a few months, so.
I seconded it.
Okay, yeah, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll recess for now. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.